As South Africa waits to hear when the Madlanga inquiry into police capture claims officially gets underway, two of the SAPS's top brass have been lobbing dirt at one another. The latest, according to our man on the beat, Tankiso Makhetha, is that National Deputy Top Cop Shadrack Sibiya alleges that his KwaZulu-Natal colleague Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is running his own parallel investigation into certain SAPS case dockets linked to the disbanding of the contentious political killings task team.
There was a message that was leaked to us in which Sibiya authored the message and addressed it to the Deputy Police Minister, Kasa Mathali, in which he detailed this team that came from KZN and has been at the head office attempting to inspect the dockets that were taken away from the political task team unit. He says this was done without his knowledge because this specific investigating team from KZN was informed to keep Sibiya and another general in the dark about it.
Stay tuned for the very latest in the police war saga next. Later in the show, the president says it'd be unfair to fire the police minister prematurely. And finally, a US ghost hunter dies whilst leading a creepy doll tour.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast channels.
If you'd like to engage us on this episode's topics, please do so. You can send us your thoughts and opinions to our official The Lead WhatsApp line. That number, 072 562 3179. My name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. If claims are anything to go by right now, it looks as if the heads of the South African Police Service are at severe odds following bombshell claims that political and criminal figures have captured the heart of the SAPS. Now, like Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya has been forced to take a leave of absence as well. He's claimed that KwaZulu-Natal's Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who initially blew this whistle, is now conducting his own parallel probe requesting details of certain case dockets. President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course, as we know in the meantime, has ordered this commission of inquiry into the police and the criminal justice system as we know it. Now, to get the very latest in this cop versus cop tit for tat saga, we now cross to our reporter Tankiso Makhetha up in Gauteng for us. Tank, thanks so much for joining The Lead. I really do appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's go into the heart of what he sort of alleged regarding Mkhwanazi at the moment. And let's also remind our listeners, firstly, Tank, what Sibiya has been accused by Mkhwanazi in all of this at the moment. I know that his name was sort of dragged into it because of this associate, Brown Mahotsi, and how that was allegedly sort of fiddling in terms of the investigation into the cat, Vusi Musi Cat Matlala. It can quickly get quite complex, right?
If we step back a bit, you'll remember that General Mkhwanazi had a press briefing about 2 weeks ago in which he made a lot of explosive allegations against, firstly, our suspended or forced on leave Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, and then dragging Lieutenant General Sibiya into the conversation as well. He's accusing General Sibiya of burying a certain number of dockets that had warrants of arrest for, I believe, 5 individuals, if I'm not mistaken. And arrests were meant to be imminent. However, the Minister Mchunu disbanded the political task team unit, which was tasked with investigating political murders, and moved dockets which they were investigating and moved them to General Sibiya's offices. So General Mkhwanazi is accusing General Sibiya of burying the dockets and covering up for suspects in a broader scheme of a state capture, judicial capture.
And thus getting rid of that unit which falls under Mkhwanazi's ambit or control, right, within KwaZulu-Natal, and which Mkhwanazi believes has done very, very well as a particular unit, and he's proud of the work that's been done there. Now, let's look a little bit closer at Sibiya. He was then, not too long after we saw the news regarding the minister, he's also been forced to take a leave of absence, right?
That was on Tuesday, and he was informed by his boss, General Fani Masemola, telephonically. However, he had prior knowledge of his pending forced leave, as my understanding is that he knew as soon as Monday evening.
Right. Tank, Sibiya's now alleged that Mkonazi's essentially been running his own sort of parallel investigation into certain case dockets here. How do we as News 24 know about this particular allegation, and what's Sibiya basing this on at this stage?
We came to learn about it shortly after his suspension yesterday. There was a message that was leaked to us in which Sibiya authored the message and addressed it to the Deputy Police Minister, Kasa Mathale, in which he detailed this team that came from KZN and has been at the head office attempting to inspect the dockets that were taken away from the political task team unit. He says this was done without his knowledge because this specific investigating team from KZN was informed to keep Sibiya and another general in the dark about it.
Sure.
I tried calling or contacting Sibiya yesterday to confirm whether or not he authored the message, but he didn't respond. However, at a later stage in the day, he was on TV and he made reference to this specific team, which is conducting a parallel investigation.
Sure, it's starting to get really, really dirty here if the allegations are to be true. And apparently even members at the SAPS headquarters up in Gauteng have been interviewed for now, right, as part of these investigations?
Indeed. So the purpose of their interviews is to, according to Sibiya, is for Mkonazi's unit to ascertain whether or not, or rather ascertain how they got into possession of these dockets that were taken from the political task team unit. So they're conducting interviews and obtaining statements from them.
What is the national main commissioner here, Fani Masemola, saying at this time? Did you manage to get him on record? Obviously, he's in a bit of a precarious position, as we know it, Tank. He can't say an awful lot. I'd think his hands are probably quite severely tied at the moment in order for it, the commission to do its work, right?
His hands are severely tied because he's also, to a certain degree, has a dark cloud hanging over him. There were rumors or murmurs of a potential arrest for him or an arrest warrant that was issued for him, but nothing's happened since news broke that he might be arrested a couple of weeks ago. And his hands are tied in a sense that he can't really do much about this investigation or this commission. He's in a bit of a tight spot at the moment because he's also facing his own allegations as well. But what is interesting is how General Sibiya was suspended or rather forced to go on leave, while other police officers or other high-ranking police officers who are facing criminal charges in relation to the same accusations that were made by General Mkonazi have not been placed on forced leave. So that's also something that's a point of contention at the moment that he may need to expand on. And no, we haven't been able to get a hold of him. It's a very sensitive moment at the moment.
Right.
It's hard to get a hold of a lot of people, including General Sibiya. I've had a couple of conversations with him over the past couple of days, but after a certain time in the day, he just doesn't pick up his phone anymore.
Sure.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graham Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179.
And of course, the allegations that the National Police Commissioner, as we've just been talking about, Fani Masemola, has been facing are these claims that he apparently authorized the irregular purchase of properties worth multi-millions. That arrest, as imminent as it sounded just a couple of days ago, had nothing, as you say, has come of it. Sibiya is not saying an awful lot. Anything from Mkonazi on the record? It seems as if he's made his bombshell claims and that's it, right?
It seems like he made his bombshell claims and dropped the mic. I tried to follow up with the claims that Sibiya made about the parallel investigation and contacted Mkonazi's spokesperson or the provincial spokesperson for SAPS in KZN, Colonel Robert Nechunda, and he said Mkonazi will not be entertaining any questions or queries related to the press briefing. He just kept it as simple as that.
Sure. And then we had this Human Sciences Research Council survey coming out just this week, Tank, basically saying that for the last 3 years, South Africa's general sort of trust in the SAPS remains at an all-time low, that only around 1 in 5 South Africans tend to trust the SAPS as we know it. You're very linked in with a lot of different law enforcement agency sources at the moment. I know that about your expert reporting at this time. Any sort of inkling about what you're sort of hearing offhand at the moment about what your sources may be potentially telling you about the current state of the SAPS as it looks so much is developing as we speak?
There's a major shakeup happening in SAPS at the moment. There are a lot of people who feel insecure about their jobs. The morale is quite low, obviously. I mean, if a head of a snake is not stable enough, the rest of the body is not going to be able to function. So, there's a lot of uncertainty in a lot of ranks in SAPS at the moment. Everyone is just waiting to see how this unfolds, whether or not they'll have a new boss or new bosses in a couple of months from now, how the Commission of Inquiry is going to unfold, what is going to be exposed, who's going to be implemented, and what further investigations will take place after that. So a lot of people are quite anxious and nervous about this at the moment, about the situation at the moment.
Right. And just to end off, Tank, you've been following this very serious investigation into the Islamic State's movements within South Africa, specifically around inner city Johannesburg, and with morale so low, and yes, there have been some arrests. What are your sources telling you about the SAPS and other law enforcement agencies' capacity specifically to tackle such serious crimes at the moment? And how do you feel as a journalist covering these things so closely, and whether or not you feel that we could potentially have breakthroughs in investigations going ahead?
There's a bit of uncertainty with the Hawks branch, which obviously are the ones who are investigating ISIS-related activities in South Africa, specifically the crimes against the states unit. They have their own set of problems because they don't have a head at the moment who'll be able to direct or steer the ship after General Libya retired a couple of months ago. And this also, interestingly, links to what is currently happening in SAPS. This was initially triggered by Libya's announcement that he's going to be retiring this year in March. A number of high-ranking police officers were gunning for his position as the national head of Hawks. So they started digging up dirt against each other, trying to eliminate each other from the race. And this has just snowballed in what is currently happening at the moment. I mean, in the crime intelligence field, we had a couple of high-ranking officers who approached the labor court last year contesting disciplinary hearings and suspensions. One of them is General Feroz Khan, who was successful in, I think, interdicting SAPS from continuing with the disciplinary hearing against him, which would have essentially meant if he had gone through with the disciplinary hearing and found guilty, he would have been summarily fired, basically.
Yeah, or dismissed.
So the morale is quite low. As I mentioned early on, there's a lot of uncertainty amongst the ranks, and it seems as though there are also faction fights within SAPS. So there also has a lot of people being timid about where they stand and what they say and what they do.
Right, Tank, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time today. I really do humbly appreciate it. Nkosi kakhulu and ngiyabonga ke leboha. Have a fantastic day further.
You too, Graham. Thanks a lot.
Keep well. Bye. To our trending topic now, President Cyril Ramaphosa spent the day addressing parliamentarians on a wide range of issues raised in his presidency budget vote speech. Dealing with mounting questions over the establishment of yet another commission of inquiry, this time into policing, the president denied that past commissions' recommendations, including the Zondo inquiry, have not been adequately implemented. And on calls for him to fire Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who's been forced to undertake a leave of absence, Ramaphosa says it'd be unfair and set a precedent to suddenly axe him. Meanwhile, the president also told Parliament that Eskom's power cuts are no longer the the norm, but the exception. Eskom says despite the high winter demand for electricity this week, the grid remains stable. Ramaphosa told MPs that further energy reforms are currently on the cards that may lower power costs in the long term. The president insists, though, that job creation remains his administration's number one priority amidst youth unemployment, the country's biggest crisis. Ramaphosa has also defended the much-touted National Dialogue talk shop, featuring some well-known South Africans including Springbok captain Siya Kolisi and celebrated actor Dr. John Carney, to name a few, claiming that this will not just be about talking. This process is due to kick off with a convention first in mid-August. Ramaphosa claims the dialogue won't divert or detract from Parliament's already established democratic dialogue processes. For more details, check out the News 24 live blog of the Presidency's budget vote on our front page.
Hello, I'm Bruce Whitfield, and I'm super excited to announce the fact that I'm teaming up with the fabulous people at News 24, and we're going to produce together a podcast called Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. Everything you need to know about the world of business and money and high finance and policy and the things that affect your back pocket every Thursday at 5 o'clock. Bruce Whitfield's Business Week is business without any of the boring bits. Subscribe now.
And finally, in a strange turn of events, a US paranormal investigators died whilst on tour showcasing a creepy Annabelle doll that inspired the 2014 horror movie. 54-year-old Dan Rivera died at a Gettysburg hotel on Sunday after emergency responders tried to administer CPR. The New England Society for Psychic Research has hailed Rivera, who had been a so-called ghost hunter in the States for at least a decade. The tour that he was leading, called Devils on the Run, allowed horror enthusiasts to meet the original Annabelle doll, which, as the fictional story goes, is inhabited by the spirit of a little girl out to do very evil things. Meanwhile, Rivera's official cause of death remains unknown, at least for now. What do you think about this? Drop us a voice note, 072 562 3179.
Buying a car? Let driving with J9 steer you right.
The reason why I wanted you in today is because I want to talk about car sales. You were in that space for a few years as a salesman.
News 24's motoring podcast, hosted by Janine van der Post, delivers sharp car advice, expert test drives.
Nowadays, when somebody, for the most part, when somebody walks into a dealership, they know sometimes more about the car than the salesperson does because of the access to information.
Yeah. The latest trends and motorsport interviews, all in one smooth ride.
But I mean, these are basic questions that people really need to know. And I think at the end of the day, you just really need to do your homework.
Catch Driving with J9 on News 24 or wherever you get your podcasts.
From intriguing developments in the police war saga to the president's budget vote, can you believe it's already Wednesday? Keep your voice notes coming. We'd love to hear your engagement on today's topic. That official lead WhatsApp line is 072 562 3179. And to be reminded of every episode, hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels. My name's Graham Robenheimer, and so long as there's news, we'll have the lead.